Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da.
It is midnight in Baghdad. Episode 49. I'm Goldie Metcalf.
I'm Charlie Naughton.
With a very bad rendition of Knowing Me, Knowing You by ABBA right there. Tonight on the show, we have a gender reveal party causing an earthquake. We have blocking puberty. Would you like to spend company with dolls? Spend company? Spend your time in company maybe with dolls. And a tourist that joins their own search party. But first, a little word from our sponsors, folks. Tonight's show, as you know, brought to you by the Holiday Inn. Charlie, talk to me about your first topic here. You're talking about a Kazakhstan bodybuilder. What's the relevance of this in a show like Midnight in Baghdad?
Right. Well, first of all, Kazakhstan probably isn't too far away from Iraq, I'd imagine.
I'd say it's actually pretty far, yeah.
Right. Well, we have a Kazakhstan bodybuilder who has quite an unusual sex life, Goldie. Like all of us do, I suppose.
Well, who doesn't? You know what I mean?
Who doesn't? Yeah, who doesn't? But this guy takes it to a new level for a couple of reasons. So I'll just tell you the background anyway, the story. He was in the news last week because he divorced his sex doll. So straight away, there's probably a couple of questions going through your mind.
Well, not really, Charlie, because we've had this on our show before, haven't we? We've had people getting married to sex dolls and divorcing sex dolls. No. Oh, we definitely have.
What show was that, Goldie?
I don't recall the episode exactly, but we've definitely discussed people marrying dolls and ghosts. I think people had married ghosts and things like that before.
Yes, we had people that married trees, I think, and a plane. We never had anyone marrying a sex doll. I think you might be mistaking it with an episode we did on. I think you did an episode on pedophilia sex dolls or something like that.
Okay.
Caused a lot of controversy.
Well, listen,
anyone who married.
Listen, bring it on here. What have you got? Teach us a lesson.
Right. Well, he divorced his sex doll, right? So the reason he divorced his sex doll last week was because he wanted to embark on a new relationship with a toy chicken. Right?
Right.
So this guy is well known in Kazakhstan, and he's causing controversy because he was a well-known bodybuilder. And he seems to have used that as a platform to kind of publicize issues about sexuality, about gender, about individual rights, and so on. And he's just causing a furore in the Kazakhstan community, which would be a very traditional and very conservative community. There's calls throughout Kazakhstan that he should be stripped of all his titles, that he shouldn't be allowed partake in, any more bodybuilding competitions. Mm-hmm. But what I found fascinating was I did a bit of background research, and I thought, right, he divorced his sex doll. So I was wondering, when did he marry his sex doll? So
that was going to be one of my questions, is, how long was he married to the doll?
Yeah, he married her in November 2020. So the marriage itself only lasted 6 months.
More than a lot of marriages in this day and age, we must say.
True. But the gas thing is, he was going out with her for 18 months. Okay. So he was going out with her for a year, and then he proposed. So I would wouldn't you love to have been a fly in the wall for the actual proposal? Like, how did he do it? So I'm picturing a sex doll is basically something you keep, in your wardrobe or whatever. You take it out when you want to have sex with it. You put it back. So did he do it before sex? Did he do it after sex? Or does he actually use the sex doll as in every aspect of his life? Sit it down to dinner, sit with it on the couch, watch TV.
Well, that would be my impression of it.
Yeah. definitely. He's living. He goes on holidays with the doll. He posts pictures of himself like posing on the beach with the doll. But so he went on social media.
And I'm having a look at the picture here, and those that are watching online can have a look at the picture. She's a very attractive doll, let's be honest about it.
Very sexy doll, actually.
And,
yeah,
and she is a bit of a smoker. She is a smoker, which, you know, some people may or may not like. But she's got this lovely pink hair, beautiful blue eyes. She's a fairly attractive looking girl or doll.
Definitely is. Well, call her a girl. This doll, according to Yuri Tolenko, this doll did identify as a female.
Okay.
And that's going to be the issue, because Yuri, the man who married the sex doll, now identifies as a pansexual. And
a what sexual?
A pansexual, like, you know, everything. Pan means everything. So the reason he broke up with this sex doll was because he cheated on her. Okay.
Right. And he obviously came clean.
He came clean. Okay. So
and those of you that are watching online now can see him in action with this sex doll.
Was he actually having sex with it?
Well, he's kissing it and it's straddling him at the moment.
Right. Okay.
But this is one it's a cross between a chicken and a female, like a lady.
No, that's his new partner.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So the reason he divorced his old one is because he now identifies as a pansexual, and he says he's fallen in love with a character, an image, a soul, not just a person, right? So the thing that he fell in love with is basically, his new wife is called Lola, but she has the body of a chicken. Yeah, and I'll quote you what he put down on Twitter. He said, "This is Lola. Lola is queer. She has not yet decided." She has not yet decided on her sexual and gender identity. She is in search. Lola has a woman's head, a chicken's body. The navel has depth and can be used as a vagina and a penis inserted into it. I'll show you this one day. Wow. I identify her as a massive chicken.
And what's very interesting about he's actually showing us the hole here at the moment. But what's very interesting about Lola is that I think you would like her, Charlie, because she's wearing stockings not only on her legs but on her chicken wings. Like it's fairly sexy. As chicken woman hybrids go, she's pretty sexy, I must say.
Okay. But I suppose you got to be careful about calling her a woman. But anyway, there's more to this story, Goldie, than meets the eye. So the unfortunate accident? So when his first wife had an accident, he obviously was drawn to this chicken and cheated on his first wife. So the circumstances were his first wife had to be sent back to basically like the factory to be repaired. And it was while she was out of the house that he had the opportunity to cheat.
So she wasn't, there was no prying eyes, essentially.
No, but it's fascinating, isn't it? This guy has created a real life. Like, it's like something out of EastEnders or something. These people these sex dolls have personalities, have characters. They're as real to him, possibly, as we are to each other. And no disrespect to the...
And what exactly is wrong with that? Do you know what I mean? Like, we are living in this age now where, okay, it's obviously, for our generation, it's pretty peculiar. But in this day and age where we're accepting of very different beliefs and identities and all the things that's happening now at the moment in the world, you know, what's the problem here? Can we not just leave him off and be happy with what he's doing?
Well, obviously in Kazakhstan, people aren't leaving him alone. Now, is that because Kazakhstan is you know, a very old-fashioned country, or do you think he'd get as much abuse if this was in Sweden or America?
I think it would definitely make the headlines. Would he get as much abuse? Probably not. But it's certainly going to.
Would he get people coming out in support of him, do you think?
I don't think we're quite there yet. But I think people would just leave him be. Whether they fully accept it, it'd be different. Do you know what I mean? Like, if people can identify as dogs and people can identify as toasters and people can identify as whatever they want, why? Like, if somebody wants to identify as a doll, which does happen, we have people who dress up as dolls all the time, and treat themselves like porcelain dolls and things like that. Why can't a doll identify as a human? And why can't this man not have a relationship with it? If it makes him happy, then what's the problem here?
I suppose that he's hurting no one. Yeah, except the woman he cheated on, I suppose. But
exactly, which is an inanimate object at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So
come here. 30 people, I think, 20 or 30 people attended the wedding. I mean, so, if I...
There's more people that listen to this show.
So he's doing something right.
Yeah, exactly.
But, if one of your friends... actually, now that I think of it, if he got married in November 2020... you probably were allowed 20. That's the only reason there wasn't more maybe at it.
There could have been more. You go? Well, Kazakhstan is obviously different. Would I go, like, if it was
a friend of yours?
Yeah, I've done crazy stuff for my friends. Do you know what I mean? So, if people wanted to do things or wanted to express themselves in a certain way, you'd support them as best you can. I would 100% be sitting there taking the piss out of them. Don't get me wrong. But I would attend, yeah.
So if you were best man, would you slag off the fact that
I'd love it? Yeah, but it would come up in the speech, wouldn't it? You take the piss out of them.
It would be a big elephant in the room if no one ever, if nobody mentioned it and they acted like she was real. And then they're trying to get her to do a speech and he has to stand behind her and hold her up and move her arms.
Well, there you go. So,
but listen, do you know what? When she had been sent off to be fixed, it said on the article that he cheated on her with a strange object. We've covered that, but it also said that he even tried to meet up with another sex doll. Now, how do you try to meet up with a sex doll and not have
this is your woman talking. This is the bereaved, not the bereaved, but the ex-wife talking. Is it?
No, it's just in the article. It's paraphrased, so I don't know who said it. But I mean, was he trying to cheat on, so supposing we both had sex dolls, my sex doll wife has been sent off to be fixed. So does that mean I went up to your house and was slyly trying to come onto your sex doll? I mean, how did he try to meet up with a sex doll and it not work out?
Maybe he was browsing online and thinking about ordering a new one, or, maybe he did order a new one, but it didn't get delivered on time. There's any amount of explanations for that, but it's definitely peculiar. Have you, Charlie, ever had sex with a sex doll?
Yes. Oh, no. I've had sex with a doll. I suppose then technically it's a sex doll.
Okay, well, you've had sex with an actual doll, like a Barbie doll, or like, what is it?
A bigger than a Barbie doll, but yeah, I was quite young.
Oh, so it's not in recent times. I'm glad to hear.
About 5 years ago, yeah.
But I think we all did.
I've never had sex with a doll, but a friend of mine got me one. I think it was maybe for my 30th or 25th or whatever.
Yeah,
it was like a blow up one. So this isn't a proper sex doll.
It wasn't it wasn't the proper
one. It didn't even look real. It's the one with the kind of from Airplane. Remember that movie? So I was tempted just to see, but it looked just really sore. It'd be like having sex with a dinghy. So I didn't. No. Would you?
It would be like I would say. I wouldn't. No, I don't think so. It wouldn't do it for me. Now, obviously, some of these amazing looking ones like Lola, there looked fantastic. You might have a chance, but you need a little.
You would have a chance. Yeah, I think you would.
No, but no, I don't think
would you. Would you have sex with Lola?
Like. I don't know if I could get myself aroused to have sex with Lola.
But you're after saying there you think Lola's sexy.
But she's like, as dolls go, she's very good looking. As you know what I mean. Like if she turned into a real person, she'd be right up my alley. But unfortunately, she's not. So I don't think I could actually get it going for that.
Okay, but do you imagine that Lola? I've never physically seen one of these sex dolls, but I'm guessing the appearance of it and the feel of it is going to be close to skin. It's going to feel
it is.
real.
It is, yeah. These people pay an awful lot of money for these things. But at the same time, it's not going to be warm, is it? It's not going to react to your whatever you do. Like if they can create basically a robot sex doll that engages with you, well then maybe you have a chance. Maybe there's a chance there for me. But
okay.
A dead inanimate object. No, it's not. It's not.
Okay.
I know, and you're right when you talk about as children. Like as children, we would have explored with the Barbie doll. We were all up under the dress. We curiosity. We probably would have cut holes out of teddy bears, just experimenting with ourselves. Do you know what I mean? We all did that. But that was a different time, and actually, it's going to be relevant to something we talk about later on in our show.
Okay. I got to be honest, Goldie. I think I would have sex with that doll, Lola. Yeah.
Really? And what about the
She
chicken?
looks real. The chicken, no, but Lola looks sexy. So the only thing's going against her, you're saying you can't get a reaction out of her. Okay. Now, we definitely discussed on the show a few years ago in Japan, they were releasing a robot sex doll that would nag you. Do you remember if you sat on the sofa too long and stuff? I don't think, if you're having a sex doll, I don't think you need that. And the warmth thing, that would be an issue. But I suppose you'd use lube. So I would definitely give it a go.
Or moisturizer.
Yeah. Moisturizer. Yeah. Whatever floats your boat, Goldie. Whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, but I just, what I'm like. It's all about the psychology for me. It's all about the mind games, and it's all about the eye contact and things like that. So, you're not going to get that. You're going to look into her eyes, and you're not going to see a soul. You're not going to see lust. You're just going to see a blank expression.
I'd love to see you having sex with someone with Asperger's.
Okay, that's a totally
eye contact. Your man looks a little bit like Colin McGregor. What do you call him?
Conor McGregor. I was only thinking that myself. Yeah, I was only thinking that myself.
And he would he's a lunatic. I probably wouldn't put it past him to try something like that as well.
Well, there you go. But
you're all into the emotions, the kind of reaction that you get, and that is obviously not a thing for people who buy sex dolls.
Yeah, I just don't get me wrong. Like I these kind of fleshlights and stuff. I have never tried any of those. I would definitely be willing to give it a rock and roll. I've never done it. I haven't tried it. But yeah, I'd give it a go. But a sex doll just seems like an awful lot of effort. Maybe I need to try it. They say you should try everything once.
If we went halves on it or something, we could probably afford it.
Well, hopefully, if any sex doll manufacturers are listening to us tonight, you could probably send us a sample, and we'll review it and report back on it. We could perhaps both use it, obviously after a good clean.
I'd love if we both used it at the same time, like a three-way or something.
A three-way with a sex doll. That would be very, very interesting. It'd probably be one of the better three-ways we've ever had.
Possibly. Yeah.
Oh, for Christ's sake. Okay.
Does that even count? That wouldn't even count, would it? It'd be basically just like us cheating with each other.
But it does count, and we've talked about what counts on our show before. Like we've talked about in our dreams. Do you remember we talked about this previously? That if I had sex with a celebrity in my dreams, and during the dream I felt it was real, I got the pleasure from it. Maybe in real life I physically, had a wet dream or orgasm or whatever. Could I not say then when I woke up that I actually had sex with this celebrity? Because for all intents and purposes, I did in my mind.
It was reality at the time.
It is. So if we wanted to say having sex or a threesome with a sex doll was an actual threesome, well, then who was anyone else to tell us it wasn't?
I agree.
You keeping on the theme of sex dolls. You sent me in a story this week of a police finding basically what was reported as a COVID-19 violation turned out to actually just be a mannequin.
Yeah.
So you're into your dolls this week. Talk to me about this story.
I found this really interesting. You know me, I have maybe an underlying agenda. So when I read this, I thought the guy. Well, do you have any reason behind it? So basically, up in Nova Scotia, a few weeks ago, in a restaurant, like you say, they'd be closed due to the COVID-19 lockdown. And someone rang in that they could see a customer seated inside this restaurant. So they rang, the police arrived, they went into the restaurant, which was closed, so they broke into it. And when they go in, they realize that it's obviously a mannequin sitting at sitting at a table in the window of the restaurant. So it's an interesting, unusual story. Now, what do you think could be behind that?
Well, I suppose there's a couple of different things. When traditionally and particularly, I suppose here too, but probably more prevalent when you're on holidays or foreign holiday, which I know you probably wouldn't be too accustomed to, Charlie. But when you're walking through, say, in an evening down a boardwalk or something in Spain or Portugal or whatever, and you're looking for a restaurant or a place to go, you'll never go into the place that is empty. Do you know what I mean? You'll always go into the place that's busy, because that's an indication to you that it's good, that the food must be of good quality. And you'll notice with a lot of these places is that they put their people at the front, do you know, of the restaurant, in the windows of the restaurant or outside al fresco, to indicate that they're busy. They never send people into the back. They want to show people that they're busy. So I think it could be a little bit of that. Now, obviously, during COVID times, that may not be as relevant, but it could be a whole, like a scarecrow type thing. Like
only the opposite, yeah.
The opposite, like a social distancing thing. Like, look, we're playing by the rules. We're compliant. That's what I'm kind of getting from this.
Okay. So you think maybe during normal times of the, like when there's not a COVID breakouts, that they actually have the mannequin there maybe to attract customers in? But it's obviously lifelike.
That's not what I said at all. What I'm saying is that during non-COVID times, they would put actual people, customers, at the front of the restaurant to show other people that there was other customers there, which indicates that it's good quality food.
Classic. Now, how about you go crazy and answer the question I actually asked you?
I just did. I think it's there as a type of scarecrow. It's there to show that, you know, they're open for business, that they're maintaining social distancing rules, that, you know, there's just this person here on their own, no one else around them. That's what I'm getting. I don't know what more you want from me here.
Well, the restaurant isn't, though. It's open for takeaway only.
Yes, I get that. But people walking by would probably go, oh, I'll go in here and get a takeaway.
Okay.
What attracted you to this story, Charlie?
It was just the sex doll. I thought it was... I could be wrong, right? I'll read out the owner of the restaurant posted the picture then to the restaurant's Instagram page with the mannequin and the police cars in the background, okay?
Okay, and then, you can see that now on our page, folks.
Okay, well done, Goldie. And he said, please don't call the police on us. We are only open for takeout and delivery. No eat in. She's a mannequin to help with social distancing, he wrote. Now, when you see that picture, I think this guy is a genius. He did this for publicity. He wanted someone to ring in.
Okay.
And he wanted to get that picture with the police in the background. We're sitting here a continent away talking about this guy. He got free advertising and he got the police involved. I think he was that smart, that far-sighted, and it's worked. Any kind of news is good news, and here people are talking about his restaurant. Not in a negative way, in a quirky, curious way. I think it's very smart.
Oh yeah, but I think sometimes, Charlie, you give people too much credit. I think maybe he did it thinking it'll be a fun little thing to have, not knowing that the cops would actually be called. And this is just an added benefit. I think, excuse me, when you look at stories, you always think of the angle that people like, the con in here in it. You know what I mean? You don't just accept it sometimes for what it is. Sometimes things just happen for no reason.
But Goldie, think about this now, right? The guy's going into the restaurant every night. He says on the Instagram page, no eat in. She's a mannequin to help with social distancing. How does
I was right. So it's a mannequin to help with social distancing. A scarecrow.
So how does having a mannequin sitting at a table help with social distancing when there's no one allowed to eat in the restaurant? That's a cover story. And I don't think it's that, like... I think you're underestimating this guy. I mean,
employees have to social distance too, don't they?
Okay. So how will a mannequin sitting at the table help them social distance?
Perhaps they're preparing for when they do open, that they're still they'll be able to open for dine in, but they'll still have to maintain social distancing. That they have these mannequins in place in the shop.
Perhaps, yeah.
Which makes you feel like you're having a little bit of company while you have your coffee or pie or whatever it is.
Do you think, Goldie, would you be able to tell the difference between a mannequin and a real person if you're walking by, a shop or whatever? Like the way we see mannequins in shop windows.
Well, they can definitely fool you. Like, have you ever been in, say, like a Marks and Spencer's or even just any kind of clothes shop at all, and you're walking around and you might be on your phone or you might be looking at something, your head is down, and then you kind of look up, and in that brief second, you think there's somebody there, and sometimes you might even apologize for bumping into them or whatever, and they just turn out to be mannequins. So I think at a glance, yeah, most definitely.
At a glance, definitely, yeah. But if you're looking, thinking, geez, this person's breaking social distancing, you're having a look. You're going through trouble of ringing the cops. Exactly.
You're. That's what I'm saying. You'd be looking in here going, you're a bit mad if you're calling the cops.
And you must, like you're saying, you should be able to distinguish between a mannequin and a real person. If you're looking at them and they're not moving, they're not eating, they're just sitting there. Unless it's the bodybuilder with the woman and he's moving her arms or something, because the mannequin is not moving. I'm very suspicious about this story.
I guess it could have been somebody driving by and looked at a glance, looked in the window and saw somebody sitting there with a cup of coffee.
Suppose.
Do you know?
Yeah.
I don't think you need to get too worked up about it, Charlie, though.
Fine. I tell you what I'll do from now on. I won't look at any stories and won't give it the time of day. Won't get worked up about anything. How does that suit you?
There's no need to go down that road, Charlie. There's no need to go down that road.
No, but like, what do you want? Do you want me just to read out the story and not do anything with it then? Just leave it be?
No, but I'm happy with your story. I just don't want you getting too upset over it. That's all.
I'm not upset. I'm actually impressed. I think this is a very, very smart, business idea. Like, think of some of the crazy ads and things that have not worked in the 90s. Hoover apparently had loads of vacuum cleaners that they couldn't get rid of, so they came up with a promotion. So the promotion was that they offered customers a free flight, right? So from basically Britain to Europe or the United States if they bought a Hoover that was worth £100 or higher. And it nearly made the company go bankrupt. I mean, when you think about it, so you got 2 free flights if you bought a vacuum cleaner. So you're going to buy the cheapest vacuum cleaner, so £100. Mm-hmm. 2 flights to the US. What would that cost you?
It depends on the time of year, but it could cost you, 1,200-1,500 quid.
So there you go.
But I imagine what Hoover's intention here was to get people actually using the product, talking to their friends, hoping word of mouth kicked off, and people start buying more Hoovers. But it obviously backfired on them. Yeah. It obviously backfired on them.
I'm actually looking at it here now, yeah. It says more than 200,000 people bought the cheapest vacuum cleaner to qualify for the promotion. Consumers ended up spending around 30 million on vacuums they didn't want, but the flights cost the company over 50 million, plus legal costs spurred by related lawsuits. In addition, Hoover launched into 7-day work weeks to satisfy the demand for their cheapest, most unremarkable vacuum.
Wow. And so, I suppose it's a little bit like our salmon promotion there a couple of episodes back.
Exactly, yeah. So these are people that are paid to come up with these kind of ideas, and there's 2 really... Well, I actually think the salmon one wasn't bad, in fairness. I thought it was a smart one. They couldn't have just predicted that people would go to the trouble of changing your name, and that was baffling you. I think this story about the mannequin is a good advertising story. I think the guy put a bit of thought into it. I don't know how much an ad costs, but I'm guessing we're talking in the region of €1,000 for an ad, maybe.
It depends again on the media you're using. If you're putting it on TV, it could cost you tens of thousands. Charlie, what you might do, and just to kind of explore this a little bit further for yourself, myself, and indeed the listeners at home, is there any way you can contact this person and try to get something from them? And maybe if they want to come onto the show on the next episode and talk us through why they did this, and let's put it to bed once and for all. And I don't know what the bet should be. I'm not going to say that if I'm right, you have to leave the show or anything like that. I wouldn't go to that extreme, but there should be something on the line in relation to it. So do get in touch with them, please.
I will.
Do. We're going to move on to our next segment, and it seems to, the last year's shows has seemed, it's just a common theme, hasn't it been? It's been COVID, it's been gender issues, it's been racial issues, it's been, I suppose that's it. That's what it's been.
That's enough.
But that's what it seems to be. I was actually going to mix two issues into the one there, and I was like, if I do, it'll be controversy. But
go on, what were you thinking?
No, I won't. But gender reveal party using 80 pounds of explosives sets off an earthquake. Like,
okay.
I'm sure you've heard of gender reveal parties, Charlie.
I have, yeah.
So what a gender reveal party is, obviously somebody is pregnant and they've found out what the gender or the sex, I don't even know is gender the right word to use anymore, of the child. And they do something fun and quirky to reveal it to their friends and to their family. And in this particular story, a New Hampshire man turns himself into police after detonating explosives as part of a gender reveal party held in a quarry. Like, there's just so much wrong with this. So this is not too far from Massachusetts. And I think 2 towns over, they heard the tremors from this explosion. So it's effectively an earthquake. The blast was 80 pounds of tannerite. I've never heard of tannerite before, but obviously it's some kind of dynamite. Apparently it's used in shooting. For target practice and things like that.
Right.
But obviously so it's legal to buy. So he obviously just went in and bought way too much of this stuff and put it together.
Okay.
But the neighbors, there was cracks in the foundation of their homes. It knocked pictures off the walls. I think it smashed the windows. There was no injuries or anything like that. But it just seemed a bit extreme, didn't it?
Jesus, yeah. And what are the consequences for this guy? Has he been arrested or...
Well, this is the thing. He handed himself in. There was they had no way of telling who this guy was at all, by all accounts. And he handed himself in. So they're still trying to decide what the charges were, because at the end of the day, what he purchased was legal. He obviously tried to take some kind of precautions by doing it in a quarry.
Yeah, I suppose.
And there was no malice in it.
For that.
But it seems a bit nuts. And I started looking into some other gender reveal parties. So in March, 2 pilots were killed when their plane crashed into the waters off Cancun while it was streaming a pink substance as part of a gender reveal. In 2020, smoke-generating pilot, they killed 2 pilots for this gender reveal. In 2020, smoke-generating pyrotechnic device used as part of a California gender reveal party caused a fire that damaged more than 7,000 acres of land. Dennis Dickey in 2017, he's a U.S. Border Patrol agent, caused $8 million worth of damage to 47,000 acres of forest when he shot a target full of blue-colored explosive. Just to show that...
Was he put in prison for that? I mean...
That I don't know. But it just seems to be nuts.
Isn't it?
To go to all this trouble. And like, I know, knowing the sex or knowing the gender of your unborn child in advance is is it a relatively new thing? Like, I know you could do it for a long time, but I think a lot of people left it up to a surprise, didn't they, back in the day?
Yeah. Well, I think when we were born, I don't think you could. Am I right? Like, it's relatively new.
I don't know. I would imagine you could, because there would have been scans and things like that. I'm going to go with that you could, but it just was a thing that people didn't want to know. It was to be a surprise, particularly probably in a Catholic Ireland. But
as long as you was born a Catholic.
No, but there was very traditional values when it came to kind of marriage and sex and having babies and stuff like that. So I imagine kind of finding out the sex in advance probably wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know is the honest answer, but it's certainly, in my experience, becoming more prevalent now.
Yeah, along with the other thing, what's that? The party they had, the baby shower.
Baby showers, yeah, which is obviously an American thing that's kind of started over here too.
So are there gender reveal parties over here? Do you know?
Yeah, there is. Of course, there is. Now, it hasn't got to the level that we've seen in the States where people are blowing up quarries and shooting things and flying planes and doing crazy stuff. You know, what you see over here is people pop a balloon, and then whatever colored confetti comes out of the balloon is what the baby is. You know, so
do you remember the gender reveal party at Lidl during the lockdown with snow?
No.
Someone drove the JCB into.
Yeah, they burned the place down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
can I ask you, Goldie? You know the way we'd record these special moments. So was the guy, the first guy you're talking about who set off the explosives? Has that been recorded on, is there footage of it?
There is. There's again, if you're looking at our screen, there's a picture here, and you just see literally in the middle a cloud of yellow dust surrounded by a massive cloud of blue dust. So congratulations on the baby boy. But it's a little bit extreme. And that's not even the main reason that I want to talk about this. Obviously, it is crazy what's happening with all these reveal parties. But the thing that got me was, and it's when I kind of read the article, it mentions it itself at the end, is that, you know, gender reveal parties are becoming such a thing now. But in parallel to that, what people's gender are and not assuming what people's genders are is also a thing at the moment. So is it not a little bit of a contradiction to say we're going to celebrate what our child's gender is, but then on the other hand, who are we to presume what it is? Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Totally, yeah.
And what's funny about it is in July 2019, one of the pioneers of the gender reveal movement, there is actually a movement, her name is Jenna Karvunidis, said it was time to reevaluate the practice because her own daughter announced to her friends via a cake with pink icing inside had begun to explore her gender and defy gender norms. So basically the person who I suppose, if for want of a better word, invented the gender reveal party, and this is apparently in July 2009. This is when she said it, so it would have been some time beforehand. Her own daughter, who she had a party for, has come out and is not the gender that was revealed at this party.
So kind of like a karma.
A little bit, isn't it?
Yeah. That's an interesting one there, Goldie. Yeah.
No, it definitely is. So, and I suppose, is it a case of, did this, if you're the pioneer of something, of a gender reveal party or something like this, you're probably a little bit eccentric, aren't you? There's probably something different about you. Let's be honest. So what's the word for it? Is it eccentricism? Can I say that?
Eccentricity?
Eccentricity. There you go. Thank you. Is that eccentricity actually the reason that their daughter actually started to question their gender? Or is it nature or is it nurture?
And what does your gut tell you about that one?
I don't know. I don't know is the honest answer. I think my gut, I'm listening to it now. It's telling me that it is probably some of the what's it, eccentricity?
Eccentricities.
Eccentricity. Right. It probably is a little bit got to do with that. Randy, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for listening.
But you know the way teenagers kick back against their parents, like, I hate you, I wish I was never born, etc., etc. Yeah. This is the best way, isn't it, for that teen? Whether I'm not saying she doesn't really believe she's questioning her gender, but if she wants to hurt her mum, that's the best way to do it, isn't it?
I suppose it's it, ma'am. You invented this in your face. You were wrong. Yeah, I guess it definitely could be a way to do that. But it's definitely very, very interesting that on one hand, in 2021, we're having gender reveal parties, and on the other hand, we're accepting that people are not born the gender they're meant to be. It seems to be a little bit of a contradiction in my book, and a little bit too presumptuous of parents. If that's the line we're going to follow, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and in a way, that teenager she's having her own gender reveal party, isn't she? it's a gender reveal of her new gender or the gender she's identifying as.
She probably will have her own party.
Yeah.
Pork chop, welcome to the show. But I heard a very, very interesting thing today in relation to gender and transsexuals and things like that. And I know it's a running theme on the show, but it's in our face every day of the week. So I think that's why it keeps coming back up. But my mind was kind of a little bit blown. my mind was a little bit blown today from listening to you kind of have these TED Talks and things like that. And this person said that, growing up as yourself and myself, males, growing up as males, we all knew a male child who played with dolls. Yeah?
Yeah.
Not sex dolls like we discussed earlier on our show, but just like Barbie dolls or Cindy dolls or whatever dolls they were. And we would have considered them girls, like girly. They were boys that were a little bit girly. And this guy says now we don't call them boys that are a little bit girly. We call them girls. Because they obviously identify as girls. This is what he's saying. But that wasn't what kind of blew my mind. What blew my mind was that he said a man grows up, or a boy grows up to be a man or a teenager or whatever, and at some point decides that he is a woman, that he feels like a woman, he thinks like a woman, he identifies as a woman. Yeah?
Yeah.
But how does this person know what a woman feels like? Do you get me?
Yeah.
And we all respect people that want to identify as a different gender and things like that. But this person today made that point. How do I know that I identify as a woman, that I think like a woman, that I feel like a woman, if I'm not a woman? Do you know what I mean? Like, are you not just a feminine man?
But can you throw that question back in the guy's face? This guy who's asking that question says, how do you know what it feels like to be a woman? You could turn around and say, well, how do you know? The guy who's asking that question, how do you know what it feels like to be a man? And he's just going to say, well, I just know.
And this is my point, Charlie.
Yeah.
This is my point. Should we just actually get rid of gender completely? What's the relevance of it? Do you know what I mean? Why do we have to label it anything?
Because what if I had a three-way or something like that, right? And though we got rid of gender, then what did I actually do? Am I now also gay? If I thought I had a three-way with two women.
But why do you have to be anything? Why do you, like, whatever you're attracted to, you're attracted to. Like, if you're going to have a three-way and you're going to have it with a man, like what we identify now or recognize now as a man, or you have it with a woman, do you care what other people think? If you're attracted and you're happy to do it, well, then just do it.
But we need labels.
Why?
Well, like, you will label yourself as a male, as a lead supporter. You know, we need these labels. They give us something. They help us identify our tribe, our community.
But it's causing so much trouble in the world, though, isn't it?
Not really. It seems like it is if you listen to this show, but let's be honest. You go about your daily life and no one really cares. Like, do you remember
that
woman the woman who did amazing in horse racing? And now she is
you're just bringing that up. She's
questioning her own gender now. Because we raised it in the show. We said, how do we know that it's a woman? And ever since then, she started the question. And she doesn't want to be labelled as a woman. So I think you've got a good point, but I don't think it's as big an issue maybe as we tend to make out in this show. It
does. It rears its head on the show time and time again. But as I said, that's just because it's in our face. Pork Chop says, and that question raises the question, do you call that a mental dysmorphia? You're born a man, but something in your mind triggers you to feel you are a woman. And this is Pork Chop. I don't know if you were here moments ago when we said it. You know, you say something in your mind triggers you to feel like a woman. How do I know if I'm born a man what it's like to feel like a woman? Maybe that's just me feeling like a man should feel, or maybe that's just me feeling feminine, but it doesn't make me a woman. Like, I don't know what it's like to feel like a woman. I don't know what a woman feels like when she orgasms. I don't know what a woman feels like when whatever she thinks about the world or views the world. I don't know. So how can I tell you that I identify as a woman when I don't know how to identify as a woman? Is it just stereotypes we're picking up?
I think you've got a point there, Goldie, because we're talking about
Benji,
you said
welcome to the
someone who
show.
plays with dolls, and we automatically presume that someone who plays with dolls is you said is girly because we associate dolls with girls. So if
Yeah.
you're talking about taking a step back, you're going to have to take the second step back then as to why is playing with dolls girly, why is playing with guns masculinely. This whole issue is something that I'm familiar with because I have a nephew who is very much gone down the route you're talking about. Now, he's only 5, but he dresses as a girl. He plays with girly toys. You know what we would identify as girly toys. When he goes up to my mum's house, he heads straight as soon as her back is turned for her jewelry box up in her bedroom and starts putting on her jewelry.
And has this 5-year-old asked to dress like this, or is this the parents just accepting it, or is it the parents forcing it? Like, what's your view on it? Like, where is it nature or is it nurture in this case?
The parents are doing nothing about it, so letting it be as
they're
it
just
is.
letting the child, and I have to admire that. I suppose you have to let your child do what it wants to do, but at the same time, at 5 years of age, does the child know? I don't know. It's definitely
my
tough.
mum is taking the opposite point of view. So his granny has made it an issue. You can't wear my jewelry, and she's locking her bedroom door. And the more you forbid a 5-year-old something, the more they want it.
Yeah.
But my mum will say to the parents that, well, he's in junior infants now. He's going to get slagged by his friends sooner or later for this. So she's trying to stamp out the behavior, she says, for his own sake. But the interesting thing is, my mum doesn't view this as a gender issue. She thinks that the child is displaying homosexuality, which shows a whole different generational take there. She thinks a guy who plays with girly stuff is going to be gay. And I had this out with her and I said, like, where are you coming from? And she said, I'm not going to name the name of the guy now, but a guy who was friends with my brother. My mum said she always knew he was gay, even when he was a youngster and he came up to play, because we were all out playing football. His brother was out the back playing football with us. And he was in with my mum watching her cook and asking her questions about her clothes and stuff. And my mum said she knew he was gay. Whereas now, you and I would say this could be someone who might be transgender, not gay.
Yeah, but they're one and the same in a way, aren't they? It depends on your outlook. No, but they are a little bit, because they are. Let's be honest about it. Like, and I'm not trying to be what's the word, controversial. Like, but if you're a man and you decide to become a woman, does that means you want to be in a relationship with another man? With a man, but you're identifying as a woman at this particular time. So I suppose from your point of view, you're not gay because you view yourself as a woman, but to the outside world, you are gay. So there's definitely a correlation there. Do you know what I mean? Like, what happens if you're a transsexual, if you're a man that turns into a woman and then goes out with other women? Does that make you gay? Because you view yourself as a woman and you're dating women. I think that's just down to your perception of it and what way you're looking at it. But are you saying a transsexual can't be gay? Transgender can't be gay? I wonder what they think, and I think it's probably down to every individual. I don't think you can tar with one brush. Do you know what I mean? But like, you might ask one transsexual, do you view yourself as gay? And they might say yes, and others might say no. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a very hard one.
Yeah.
To just, and that's why I'm saying maybe we should just get rid of gender.
Transgender, who could I identify as a transgender woman? Okay, so I believe I'm a woman, right? So I believe I'm transgender, but I want to date women because I think I'm a gay transgender. I think I'm a gay woman.
Yes, you can do that if you want.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But no, I mean,
no, but yeah.
Do you think that's possible?
Of course it's possible. It happens all the time. And as regards to you're saying, you definitely can identify children and have a very good, it's probably not an exact science, but you would have a very good idea. And I remember growing up as a kid, and there was always this kid who was in my class who played with dolls the whole time, and we always thought that he was gay. And I remember even my parents saying that he's gay, or a girl. We called him a girly boy or whatever. And he did turn out to be a very proud and very successful gay person.
Successful.
No, but
he was a total slut.
he loved the flute. No, but he's very happy in his life now at the moment, and obviously he went through some difficult times as a teenager, but we knew it. We could see it from a very young age. So you definitely can. Pork Chop says, you said it yourself, you're born as a specific gender, a man. Your body is clinically a male. Hence you think, act, appear as a male. I feel it's a society issue. Child seeking the attention they aren't getting, so they take drastic measures. And this is, I suppose, Pork Chop brings us back to the nature versus nurture. I do fully accept that that's a thing, that a child or a person can be influenced, can be sent in a certain direction due to circumstance, due to how they're nurtured, due to trauma, due to broken homes, looking for attention. And I definitely, I think in this day and age, there's an awful lot of people who are what's the word? I don't want to, who are basically coming out as being gay. And it definitely is an attention thing or a cool thing or it's something in society at the moment it's kind of cool to be gay at the moment.
I think I'm very dodgy ground there, Goldie.
No, but I'm talking from my own experiences. And I know we need to totally reverse what we're going to say now in a second. But it's definitely a thing in certain elements in society where people are doing it, certainly as a cry for help, certainly as an attention thing. Certainly that definitely is, and I don't want to take away from people who genuinely are gay, but there's definitely an element of that, and we've talked about it previously on the show. But
then both of you are acting as if coming out as gay or coming out as anything is some kind of bad thing, a way of trauma showing itself, as if it's a negative thing.
No, but it can be both, because it's as I said, it's the nature and it's the nurture, and we're going to address the nature part now in a moment. But if you take, for example, a lot of gay people, a high majority, or a high percent, not majority, but a high percentage of them would have probably self-harmed. Like self-harmers, there's a high percentage of them are gay.
I agree.
There's a reason for that. And now the reason that they're not accepted by society, that they went through all these issues and they self-harm, or is being gay a manifestation of the self-harm, of the root cause for this? Do you get what I'm saying?
I do, yeah.
And I don't think there's enough
horse kind of thing.
Yeah, there's not enough research done on it, I don't think, but there's definitely statistics out there to show that people that self-harm, that a high percentage of gay people have at some point in their lives
TikTok,
self-harmed.
Peter, TikTok.
If you just Google it, PTR, you'll find the stuff out. But now
I think the statistics are backing up, though, Goldie, and common sense as well would tell you that these people who self-harm, it's a tragedy. They're self-harming because society has, like you said, your friend or your classmate, he gets abuse for being gay. That's why he self-harmed.
Yes,
he was gay first.
It most definitely could be a bullying thing, and I don't know. That's what I'd like to see. I do know for a fact that the stats are out there to say it. But what I don't know, and I'd like to see researched, is what came first. Did the bullying and the fact that they were gay and coming to terms with that lead to the self-harm, or did the self-harm manifest itself in other ways? And I don't know the answer to that question. But just to go back to Pork Chop and kind of address the nature element of it, Pork Chop, I do accept that you can be born clinically a male, and it can be a mental health issue that changes that perception of yourself. I do accept that can be there, but I do fully accept as well, and you don't agree with me, and I know, Pork Chop, you don't, but that you can be born gay. You can be born a man in a woman's body, and as we've said many times on the show before, we all start as female. All our embryos start as female, so there is a bit of female in us all. Do you know what I mean? So at some point during conception or gestation, we have to turn from male to female. So there's definitely things that can potentially go, and again, I use this word very trivially, but there's things that can go wrong that don't fully change. Only like 70% of us change to male, and there's still that 30% there that didn't fully change because of some genetic anomaly or something. So that's why people are born feeling that they're actually female when they're born male. Do you get what I'm trying to say, Charlie?
Oh, I do. Yeah.
And Pork Chop says he understands it. PTR says XY.
Pork
and
Chop
XS.
is a good masculine name, isn't it? If you're analysing these are names you pick for yourself. Pork chop would be quite masculine, wouldn't it?
It's a meaty kind of name, isn't it?
Yeah,
it most definitely is.
Yeah.
So there's definitely two sides to these things for sure, and I think both can be true. But I think, why not just get rid of it? Why not get rid of, instead of accepting 100 different genders, why not just get rid of the term altogether?
Get rid of anything.
We're just people. Do you know what I mean? We're people. And why do you have to be labeled gay or bisexual or whatever? If you want to have sex with whoever you want to have sex with, work away, enjoy yourself. You don't need to label it. Okay. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So that's my views on it. And it kind of brings us on to the next segment of our show, Charlie, which is lack of clarity on use of puberty blockers for gender dysphoria treatment in Ireland. Have you seen this story?
I haven't. And you actually sent me this a few weeks ago, but I never read it.
Okay, so UK rulings have resulted in a major report and new safeguards, but the responses on the issue are not forthcoming in this jurisdiction being Ireland. So this is, and this kind of shocked me a little bit. Sorry, I'm just reading through the comments there. You want a man going to the same bathroom as your daughter. There has to be a definitive line. I know, pork chop. I know. Where do you draw that line, though? Do you know what I mean? There is no lines being drawn at the moment, and that's the issue. There's no one willing to make a decision on it.
How dare you presume that Goldie's daughter is a female? How dare you?
yeah. But this kind of shocked me that this was a thing. So these are like puberty blockers. So these are actually tablets, I presume, or some kind of medication that you give to your child to prevent the symptoms, I suppose, or of puberty. Like, I understand there might be medical reasons for that to happen in very, very rare and certain circumstances, but this seems to be a thing now where they're blocking puberty.
So what happens then? Does the child stay childlike, and let's say a boy's voice doesn't drop, his testicles don't drop, all that kind of stuff because of the puberty blocker? Is that what happens?
I presume so, but it seems to be aimed at dealing with
creating a paedophile paradise, aren't we?
But yeah, I suppose. But
if you allow puberty blockers, of course, you're saying they're not allowed here. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that they haven't made a decision here. There has been a ruling in the UK, but over here they haven't made a decision on it. But what they're saying is it's an experimental treatment administered to children suffering from gender dysphoria. So my impression of that is this is being given to children who aren't sure, who haven't made a decision yet, who are questioning their own sexuality. And we're giving them this medication to give them maybe time to consider it. Am I right in thinking that?
That seems like the court's heart is in the right place, isn't it? They're trying to allow the child, giving it more time, like you say. They don't want him or her to jump into a decision. Yeah,
but it's like, it seems very odd to me. Why not? Like, surely puberty is a part of that, isn't it? It's a part of becoming aware with your own body and
a huge time of confusion anyway for anyone.
Yeah. So, like, are we being too careful? Are we jumping down this line of interfering too much in the natural course of things? Like, why is it a problem if somebody has gender dysmorphia? Like, if people want to take the time or want to change their sexuality, just let them. Why are we interfering? And perhaps, we don't know what this means.
Well, they'd be under 18, Goldie. So if you've a 12-year-old and the 12-year-old wants to, let's say, start embarking on the course to change gender, they need the parents' consent, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So the parents are saying, no, I'm not letting you do that. And they have the right to do that. But you remember we were discussing recently on the show that right of a parent was overturned in Canada, that a dad was being forced to call his daughter he.
Yes.
So now parents might not automatically have the right to stop a child trying to change their identity. So maybe this is a way of trying to get a happy medium.
Well, it did come up. So an unnamed mother argued that people under 18 years of age are not in a position to give the legal age of consent required for the treatment. But this guy, Tavistock, argued that children can meet the level of consent required by law. The issue for the court was consent and not the advisability or otherwise of administering puberty blockers. So what they're trying to say is that it's not for the court to determine whether these blockers should or shouldn't be given. It's down to whether the child can consent to it or not. And that's the issue. But an interesting statistic here, between 2011 and 2019, the proportion of those presenting with gender dysphoria who were born female has gone from approximately 50% to 76%. So we're seeing a massive, massive increase in it.
Say that again, Goldie.
So between 2011 and 2019, people who were born female and identified as male has gone from 50% to 76%.
What?
These are people who present with gender dysphoria.
Yeah. Are you saying it's 75% of what? Not of all females.
Yeah, so it's females turning to male. The males turning to female would only be clearly 20-40.
Oh, right. Okay.
Do you get me?
That's an interesting imbalance, isn't it?
It is.
Why do you think that's the case?
Well, it could be. Could it be what I was saying initially, that we all start off as female? Do you know what I mean? Is that why?
Okay. Wow. I remember hearing of a case in England a few years ago. This has nothing to do with gender, but it's the same issue of children and parents' rights. There was a judge who had to decide. The parents were, I think, Hare Krishnas, or one of those kind of, I was going to say cults. I will say cults because every religion is a cult, I suppose. But they were a minority kind of religion. So let's say it's a Hare Krishna or whatever. I can't remember which one, but it's the religion that does not allow blood transfusions, right? Mm-hmm. And their child who was
Mormons.
17. Was it Mormons? Okay.
Mormons don't allow that stuff, yeah.
Do they not? Right. So their child was 17. Now, they were not British born. The parents weren't British born. The child was. And the child had leukemia or something like that. So the hospital, as part of this operation that they were going to do on the child, he was going to obviously need blood transfusions during the course of the operation, like everyone would during an operation. The parents refused, and the hospital was saying, your child will die if we don't do this operation. And the parents were saying, well, that's in accordance with our religion and our rights as parents to deny him this medical care. So he must be allowed to die. And the hospital took the parents to court to try to force them, basically to overrule them, to be allowed to operate on the child and give the blood transfusion. And a single judge had to decide, because it didn't go to the Supreme Court, a single judge had to decide that. Imagine that responsibility and that pressure on one person.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Like, I think initially you're going to say, and I think any of our listeners right now would be like, save the child. Do you know what I mean? Give the judge would grant it. But it's not as simple as that, is it? You know, we talk about in 2021 respecting people's rights, beliefs, religion, color of their skin, gender, everything else. So who are we to say that child has to undergo that operation?
Exactly.
Just because it goes against our belief system doesn't mean we shouldn't respect someone else's. It's definitely
a tough one. If they believe that if that child gets the blood transfusion, then he mightn't go to whatever they view as heaven because of that it's going to be a big sin and God will reject them. And if all that is true, well, then that hospital is condemning that child to hell. So it was all these different issues. It was fascinating.
But it's going to be very hard to kind of envisage this, Charlie. But if, for example, this was your child and you were of this same belief, if we're going to say it's Mormons, we may be wrong. We apologize to all our Mormon listeners if we are. But if you're of
they're not allowed to get blood transfusions or listen to the midnight
or listen to the whole
gender thing.
Jehovah's, Benji says. Thank you,
That's
Benji.
it, actually, Benji. Yeah, it's Jehovah.
So Jehovah Witnesses, you're right. If you're a Jehovah Witness, Charlie, and this is your child, and I'm the judge, and I've said your child has to undergo that operation, and your child undergoes the operation and survives, are you as a parent going to love that child any less or treat it any differently?
Are you asking me that?
I'm asking you that, yeah. And I know it's hard to put yourself in those shoes, but I think that's the question the judge probably has to ask himself.
Yeah. I suppose you'd have to think as well, what does the child want the operation? Is the child going against the parents, saying, well, I do want the hospital to do it?
And I think that's a very interesting point, because I think the age of the child is very relevant. If this is like a 3-4-year-old child, it probably doesn't have a decision or a valid opinion. But if this child is 14, 15, 16 years of age, well, then I think you need to take their views into consideration for sure.
Definitely, yeah. The fascinating thing about this real life case was the judge ruled in favor of the hospital, and the parents were delighted. They had only refused the hospital access to the operation of blood transfusion because of their religion, because they didn't want to be ostracized by the Jehovah's community. They actually wanted the operation. They were delighted with the result.
I was trying to get to that. I suppose the decision has been taken out of their hands, hasn't it, at this stage?
Yeah, exactly. The parents did nothing wrong. They got the best of. They had their cake and ate it too. They stay in their religion, and their child is saved.
I think it's tough. As if I was a judge myself, I don't know what I would do, and I think it's definitely down to each individual circumstance, because you can't interfere with other people's. Like, say, for example, we talk, and I know I'm going extreme here, but we're talking about people on our own planet and, different cultures and different religions. But if this was us visiting another planet, and this is what they did, this is what this race did as their custom, who would we be to tell them what to do and what was right and what was wrong? And I would struggle with that, I think, as a judge. But I can definitely understand the value of saving the child's life.
You don't need to go to another planet, Goldie. I mean, look at the whole issue of female genital mutilation in Africa. It's barbaric, and yet people bend over backwards not to criticize it because it's, part of the culture, part of the tribal heritage for years.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And, you're probably leading me down a rabbit hole here a little bit in relation to what we do on the world stage, or the world police does. Let's keep it on air, Pork Chop says. But you're right. Gender mutilation is obviously, it's a horrible thing from our perspective, for sure, and I think from any reasonable person's perspective. And there's certainly laws in every Western civilization to deal with it. But it's not something like we don't like. And I know we have some American listeners in here, so please excuse my maybe beratement of your nation for a minute. But as Westerners, we look to America for protection, I suppose, and we consider them maybe the world's police. I'm not too wrong in saying that, am I, Charlie?
I suppose, yeah. We get a lot of our cultural attitudes from the West, wouldn't we?
We would, and I suppose the United Nations and particularly the Americans, they're the world police, essentially. Team America, the puppet show film. Do you remember that? But
yeah.
So so why, like, we look at, say, atrocities in our own country here, Iraq, Baghdad. We look at Iran and other places where the Americans have got involved. Vietnam, atrocities happen and the American gets involved. Why is it not happening with the genital mutilations? Is it just not high profile enough? Do they not give a shit enough? And not even just America, but the United Nations, the UK. Why is it not a thing? Like, these are atrocities that are happening. But is it because they're happening in African nations? And is it a racial thing again that it's not really? It doesn't really matter.
But, like, surely, how can America get involved short of, you can't interfere with another country's internal workings apart from
but they do
invading
all the time. They do all
by
the
going
time.
to war. By going to war.
Yes, but how? Like, America goes to war all the time for things. But obviously,
No, it doesn't go to war all the time.
Well, in the Bush days, it did. Obama was kind of stopped that policy or tried to prevent it as much as possible. But it was, and the cynic, I suppose, would say, because Iraq and Iran, or Iraq has oil. So, it was beneficial, commercially beneficial for them to invade there, and it was just a ruse, and there was no weapons of mass destruction, and all that stuff that we all know about and talk about in history, I suppose.
Do you know how many times America has declared war? 11. 11 times. Looking at it here.
Yeah, Porkchop says because it's a religious belief, the US are not crusaders, wars over political or freedom and such. And Benji Boyle says, I think most citizens would rather a government stay out of everything. I think that you're probably right, Benji, but they don't. And what I'm kind of getting at here when I talk about the mutilations is I'm actually going to move away from that, but I just it was brought up by Charlie, but it's kind of my doorway into what's happening right now in Israel and Palestine. Like, what's amazing to me is that what's happening there is an atrocity. It's an absolute outrage what's happening. Israel are bombing these Palestinian people out
terrorists.
of it. But they're not terrorists. Well, maybe they are. We can argue that in a moment. But, what's happening, I think Americans are being fed lies in what's happening there. And we talk about the victor creates their own narrative of history and things like that. And I think that's happening a little bit. Like, Palestine and Hamas are being viewed as terrorists, essentially, which is not entirely true. And we talk about, they're firing rockets into Israel. But realistically, what they're firing into Israel, it's nothing compared. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not these massive technological weapons. They're not causing the deaths, tolls, or the damage that the attacks in return from Israel are causing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like chalk. But
then, Goldie, does it go back to the fact then Israel are able to say, well, you attacked us first. You
that's
you
what they are saying.
Yeah,
you attacked us first.
They're right as well. So, regardless of whether they kill 100 Palestinians for every one Israeli child killed, the Israelis will say, well, why did you send those rockets across last week?
Exactly, and that's the
this
question.
Idea of a proportionate response is silly. I think it's what America does. When they're attacked, and after 9/11, all these other horrific things that have happened to Americans, they have to do what's often considered a proportionate response. Now, I can understand you don't want to do it. But if you look at response, Israel doesn't care; it does a disproportionate response.
But America has a veto. Yeah, America, I think China, Russia, maybe France, but they have a power to veto. They have a power to veto. So the United Nations have been trying to get involved, have been trying to make a statement to say that end these atrocities, end the violence. But America keeps vetoing it. They're stopping the United Nations from taking a stance. And the reason that they're doing that is because Israel is their ally in the Middle East. They are their nuclear power in the Middle East. And I think the Obama administration had a very bad relationship with Israel because Obama, I think, was the only American president to ever not veto a United Nations thing against Israel. Obama stood up and said, this is wrong. And there was a very bad relationship. And that obviously changed then when Trump came in and now Biden is in. No, Benji, in fairness, Biden has supported Israel.
He said nothing, yeah. Well, he said nothing, yeah.
He said that people have the right to defend themselves, but that's not the thing. The history of Israel and Palestine is very complicated, but in very, very simple terms. Right? I'm trying to break it down to simple terms, Charlie. And are you aware of the history at all?
I am, yeah, of course I am.
So basically, what's after happening is the Jews, right, never ever had a homeland. Like 2,000 years ago, they had Jerusalem and things like that, and that was their homeland.
Okay, so they did have a homeland.
But so did Napoleon, so did Gandhi, or not Gandhi, Genghis Khan. Where do we draw the line of borders? But 2,000 years ago,
you can't compare the Israeli tribes of 2,000 years ago to Genghis Khan or to Napoleon, both of whom are conquerors. The Israelis are going to say that was simply where they lived, and they were attacked by, I don't know, was it Egypt?
Yes.
And Egypt takes them all prisoners and stuff, so they lost their homeland.
But here's the thing, Charlie. Palestine was never even a word. It never existed. In the land where Israel is now, were just Arabs. They were just Arab people under British rule. It was a British, basically, colony or whatever, right?
Consulate.
Yeah. And the Jews, I think everyone here will agree that the Jews have had a terrible time throughout history. They've been persecuted from as long as anyone can remember, going back to even 2,000 years ago, going back to obviously most recently during World War II. And obviously there was a lot of guilt and a lot of hurt and stuff at the end of World War II. So in the late 40s, it was a case of, oh, we better do something for the Jews. And they basically gifted them or gave them Israel. The Brits moved out. Here you go. This is your border. This is your country, now your homeland. It's your ancestral home. Here it is. So all these refugees came from all over Europe and landed into Israel, what's now known as Israel. But when they all landed in, all of the people who we now know as Palestinians became refugees. They all had to leave. They were fucked out. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that just blows my mind, because for a race that have been so persecuted and understand what it's like to be persecuted, you think they would be the first ones not to do it to another race. And they are.
I totally disagree.
Yes, pork chop. In 1948, they were gifted the Holy Land. It was given to them, and all the people who lived there had to leave. So it could be argued, and it is argued, that the Palestinians, and they weren't called Palestinians at that stage, they were just Arabs. I
think pork chop was being sarcastic.
No, I don't think pork chop is, but they originally, that is their land, and it's very like Ireland in the sense of Ireland in the 70s. You know, you've got Northern Ireland here, where you've got Protestants and you've got Catholics. You know, and if we want to say the Protestants are the Israelis and the Catholics are the Palestinians, you know, the Palestinians and the Catholics were second-class citizens in Northern Ireland in the 70s, and they're second-class citizens today in Israel and Gaza and West Bank. It's exactly the same, but they are the original people who own that land.
I don't know how you can say it's the same.
Well, why are you saying it's not the same? That's factually correct.
It's not factually correct. You're comparing the Palestinians to the poor Catholics in Northern Ireland. That is implying then that you are saying the Israelis are like Britain, which was a colony which was conquering the world, like Genghis Khan, like the other chap.
No, you're probably taking my analogy a little bit too far. My point is,
I'm not. I'm just taking it literally.
My point is, they're treated as second class. Palestinians are being treated like second-class citizens. That's a simple fact.
Yes. I'll be the first to agree with it.
But being treated as second-class citizens from people who themselves were treated as subhuman.
Exactly. I totally agree with you there. I think you've just explained why the Israelis didn't give a shit and just chucked the Palestinians out. Because for thousands of years, they have been persecuted, abused, and no one cared. So when they get their homeland, they dig their heels in and they are looking out for themselves. That's Israel's attitude. And we're talking about only 2 generations they've had that land. Of course they're going to defend it and not care about anyone else. Because all their history tells them, every Israeli kid...
Well, isn't the better person the one that pays it forward? The one that,
Of course, God. Yeah, but that's in an ideal world. I'm not defending the Israelites. I'm simply explaining. It makes sense to me. If I was an Israeli, I would be 100% of that same attitude. Why would I care what the rest of the world thinks? And why would I care about other refugees?
But that's because you would have been taught and educated the narrative of that country. Like, we're all taught. There is no common world history. We're all taught the history that our nation wants to teach us that suits our own agenda. Do you know what I mean? That's the reality of the situation.
Right, look at the question Pork Chops asked there.
Would you say the same for British colonists and Native Americans?
Okay, yes, so let's say right now, Native Americans were gifted New Hampshire, right?
Yeah.
And they get rid of, so they have total control in New Hampshire. And the Native Americans decide, right, we're going to get rid of all what they'll call the British colonists, what we will call Americans who've lived there for probably 6 generations now. I would totally understand why a Native American would want to do that.
Yeah, but they've fought for their rights. They've been given what's the word I'm looking for? Not settlements, but they've been given land. There is an official term for it. It escapes me now. So they have been given. They're all casinos now. Refugee camps. No, they're not refugee camps. They're what's the word that you call them?
Reservations.
Reservations. Thank you, Charlie. They've been given reservations, which is a small acknowledgement, I suppose, of...
It's laughable, Goldie.
It is a little bit laughable. But yes, absolutely, the Native Americans were the original owners of America. And this is where I'm saying you have to draw the line somewhere. At some point, you have to say, well, we have to draw the line here, because how far in history do we go back and say, well, this was actually originally yours, so here you go. We have to be realistic about it.
Well, we have 1 billion people on a planet of 7 billion that follow a religion that's more than 3,500 years old. So people have long memories.
I think, when you go back only, what is it, 70 years ago, 1948, you go back to that, it was a bit late in the day to be changing borders and giving these people a country. I think it was always going to end in disaster. But what happened then was that, say the Israelis were given, I don't know the actual term or statistics, but let's say it was 100 square meters of land, just for argument's sake, to keep it simple. They were given 100 square meters of land and told, this is now Israel. This is your country. And you can have your own government, and your own people finally have a place to call their own. What Israel did, after kicking out, and after all these other refugees, now Palestinians, have moved out, they started to expand their borders against the original agreement.
But in fairness, I don't want to be defending Israel, Goldie, but imagine, take your analogy, right? You're not Midnight in Baghdad. You are these powers that have won World War II. You're essentially Russia, America, and Britain. And you are saying to Israel, I'm giving you 100 square meters of land. For the last 2,000 years, Israel have been saying these 200 square meters of land around Palestine, around Jordan, or whatever, have been ours.
Yeah, but every deal needs a compromise. Everything needs a compromise, and do you know what I mean? Like, if they had just accepted what they were given, we probably wouldn't have the issues we're having today. Like, Israel are 100% wrong in what they're doing by anybody's standards. The killing of innocent children, the fact that they blew up. I don't know if you saw the video during the week. A media center, like where writers are and Al Jazeera are and stuff like that, because they didn't want. Now the theory is they didn't want the actual true reporting to happen. Like, and we have America, who, if this was in any other country, the Americans would come out and say that this is wrong, and they would possibly, to be United Nations sanctions, they would probably threaten physical action, as in airstrikes and things like that, and are not going near it. In fact, the Americans are stopping the United Nations from doing anything about it, because Israel is their only powerhouse in that region. And that's wrong.
No, I tell you what's wrong. We can blame America all you want. There's nothing stopping every single other United Nation in the United Nations, all of the other 157 countries or whatever it is, to simply come out and say, right, we're going to take a resolution without you, or we're going to change the rules of the United Nations. They could if they want. Basically, all these other countries are blaming America because it's a handy scapegoat. It stops other countries having to step in.
I don't think you get it, Charlie. America alone can veto.
I do understand what a veto is. Yes.
No matter.
I understand that.
Every other, yeah. So if every other nation says this is what we're going to do in Israel, right? The Americans can turn around and say, actually, no, we're not going to. And it's the same with the Russians, and that's why Syria. Syria has been battling on for years now, and the Americans have tried to get involved, but the Russians have said, actually, no, we're going to veto that. And that's why that hasn't been dealt with. So your suggestion is to fundamentally change the rules of the United Nations. That's going to take...
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying that all these other countries that spout about how bad Israel is, they're delighted that America will veto any action. That's what they want. They don't want to have to plug money when no country has any money. No one wants to send soldiers or whatever it would be to that region. They can say America's terrible all they want. They're delighted that it will veto any possible resolution. It'd be like me saying to you, Goldie, no, we need to help the poor. We need to help the poor.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
You're going to turn around and say, oh, no, we're not helping the poor. And then I can go, Goldie's just terrible. I want to help the poor. I really want to help the poor. If I really do, come on.
Maybe you're right. Maybe it suits countries to say,
of course it does.
Oh, we wish we could do something, but America won't let us. Maybe you're right. But at the same time, we don't have that information. The only information we have is that America are vetoing it. And I think it's wrong. And I'm not saying that Israel should be invaded or there should be airstrikes on Israel, but there should definitely be a condemnation of what's happening. And we're not even able to give that. Porkchop asks, should the UN have gotten involved with Northern Ireland during the 70s? Absolutely. Absolutely they should have, Porkchop. The stuff that goes on, and it was only this week. You've heard of Bloody Sunday. There's actually been a few Bloody Sundays, but the main Bloody Sunday I think that everyone thinks about, where British paratroopers shot innocent civilians in Belfast. What was it, Bally? I was going to say Bally Buffet just for comedic value. What is Bally? I can't remember. Bally something. But yeah, that only this week did the UK government, or last week did the UK government come out and apologise for that and say that it was wrong. So there was some unbelievable atrocities happening in Northern Ireland during the 70s. And I think you can definitely compare Catholics and Protestants with Palestinians and Israelis in the sense that they're second-class citizens. It's definitely, there's definitely comparisons there to be made in relation to it. Why didn't they get involved? I don't know, Porkchop. I'm probably maybe a little bit ashamed. Charlie, do you know why the United Nations didn't get involved in Northern Ireland?
Well, if we go by your theory, Britain would have vetoed it.
Potentially, it could have been. Yeah, it's something definitely to look into. Was it vetoed? Yeah, perhaps.
No, it was never recognised as a war zone. We call it a war zone. It wasn't a war. We call it the Troubles. Down here, we call it the Troubles. Like, we don't even call it a war.
Yeah,
so
I don't know
if the United Nations get involved.
But because if there's atrocities happening, if there's unjust things happening, like the United Nations was created to prevent such things from happening and to ensure that the atrocities of World War II were never repeated. So I think they should have got involved. I don't know is the answer, and it's something we should definitely look in. Is Israel a war zone? Well, it depends on what you consider a war zone. Like the Palestinians don't have anything to fight back with. They're thrown in. Okay, they're rockets, but like in essence, they're rocks. They're throwing rocks into Israel, and Israel are thrown in fucking ballistic missiles, basically. Like there's no, they don't have a hope against.
I could be wrong. I think Israel is permanently in a war footing. Am I right? Every male has to become a soldier for 2 years.
They all do.
I think the Israel and Egypt war was at 68 or something. That never actually ended. It was never there was never a ceasefire declared. I think Israel has been.
I don't know about that, but I think Israel. You're definitely North Korea and South Korea are technically at war since.
I know, yeah. I think it's the same with Israel.
It could potentially be, but everyone has to do their military service and things like that. Certainly every male.
Yeah, and in fact, when I said males, I was probably wrong. Yeah, now that you think of it.
Yeah, you could be right. I've known a few people from Israel.
I watched World War Z there last week. Great film. Saw it in cinema when I came out, but loved it this time around.
You would think the West Bank or Jerusalem would be a great place to hold up with the walls, wouldn't you?
Wouldn't you? Yeah.
Not if they're running zombies. They'll just catch up. We've got very heavy there, folks. We're going to move on to our next.
The woman in that was female. The soldier with him was a female soldier. It never even came up. I thought it was interesting. She was an Israeli female soldier.
Wasn't that the show where there were certain people who had like cancer or different things wrong with them?
Yeah,
the zombies
zombies ignored them. Yeah,
a great show.
Very good.
We're going to slightly move on to a different subject, but we're going to stay on the theme of religion a little bit. Wesley Fofana is a Leicester defender. This is soccer now, folks. And he thanks the Premier League after being allowed to break Ramadan fast mid-game. So as part of Ramadan, Muslims fast during daylight hours, making it difficult for footballers to maintain energy levels. Leicester's clash with Crystal Palace on Monday took place as the sun set, and Wesley Fofana and Sheikhu Kouyaté were permitted to break their fast mid-game. So basically, this is a soccer game, a Premier League game, giving a break in the match for the players who are fasting to have a bite to eat. So they're acknowledging their religion. What do you think about this, Charlie? Was it you that brought me the story?
No, I think it was our colleague.
Okay.
I think it was just laziness. I think the guys were unfit and they were using it as an excuse, to be honest.
No, like, the question I'm kind of asking you is, should we respect people's beliefs and religions so much that we change the traditional rules of sports and things like that to cater for it? And if so, again, the age-old question on Midnight in Baghdad is, where do you draw the line with it? And is this open to people abusing the situation?
Yeah, true. Well, this... Go on, yeah?
No, but if, for example, these two players got to stop during the match and had a bite to eat, were the other players allowed to have a bite to eat? The non-Muslim players on the team? Were they allowed to have something to eat? Like I
heard that some of them wanted to, and Wesley Fofana went mental. Said, "You're not Muslims. What are you doing?" He went crazy, absolutely ballistic at them.
But do we want to see our sports interrupted for this kind of thing? Is it something that we should accept? Or if you were going to make, if you want to make it in professional sports, you should be willing to make sacrifices, and they do. In fairness, they make a lot of sacrifices already. Athletes do. Should breaking your religious beliefs be part of that?
Okay, for sport, that seems like when you put it that way, your religious beliefs, your sport. It seems like no, you should never break your religious beliefs for a game. But wasn't this roundly celebrated? There's no controversy here that everyone seems to think this was a brilliant idea and a sign of football, a good news story for soccer after all the travesty of the last few weeks.
No, it's not a negative thing. Well, it's just
it's for you, is it?
No, it's not. I'm not saying it's a negative. We don't talk about negative things all the time. It's made to headlines, so it is a thing. It's the first time in Premier League history that this has ever happened.
But it was a positive news story. Like, it made the headlines for good reasons.
Well, I suppose it depends on your perspective. This is somebody who's basically taken a couple of minutes to go. I assume he had a protein shake or some kind of energy drink or something like that. That wouldn't have ordinarily been available. Benji Boyle says, "How much am I getting paid?" Is that the question, Benji? Are you willing to forgo your religious beliefs for a few quid? Do you know?
That's a rhetorical question. I don't think he actually wants you to answer that on the air.
Well, I'm sure she will. I'm sure she will answer it on the air. I don't know. I just wanted to kind of bring this story up because I don't know how I feel about it, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way, right? You know the way when we were kids, the Premier League was on a Saturday. All the matches were on a Saturday. Supposing I say I'm a very devout Christian, I can't play on a Sunday because, a devout Christian is supposed to rest on Sunday.
Yeah.
So should I, I could refuse to play, but what we're saying is, should the Premier League actually not put any of my team's games on a Sunday to respect my devout religious beliefs?
But isn't this the thing? And you raise a very good point because, in my profession, working in entertainment, I'm entitled to go to Mass every Sunday. I'm entitled to take an hour or 2 hours, whatever it is, off during my working hours to go to Mass. That's officially a rule. But if I was to actually take that up, it would be seriously frowned upon. I would probably be bullied for doing so.
Okay.
And that's the culture we live in here, isn't it? Like, you'd be expected, what are you talking about? But next, if my colleague is a Muslim, there'll be no issue with them, doing what they have to do in relation to their customs.
Okay, yeah. No, I see what you mean. I suppose as well, if we're respecting religion, this guy's religious beliefs, and don't get me wrong, I do think it's a good thing. But you remember the issue with James McClain and Poppy?
There's something ringing my bell with James McClain.
So, like, he's obviously a very staunch Republican. Now, I'm not saying he's a staunch Catholic. He's a staunch Republican. He refused to wear a poppy.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And this caused huge scandal. So, should the Premier League not stand up for his rights now, his religious beliefs, in future going forward, and not allow any abuse? There was a tirade of abuse directed at him, not just from fans, but from pundits and everything. And the Premier League said nothing. Now, should the Premier League say he also has his right, to not wear that poppy if he wants?
Yeah, and again, it's like, how flippant are we going to be? Do we allow everybody, or should the Premier League just have its rules? If you want to be part of this league, these are the rules you follow. And it's up to you, regardless of your gender, regardless of your religious beliefs, whether you want to be a part of this or not. But this is what we expect from you. Should they not be allowed to set those rules out? Because if we allow exceptions for Muslims, for Ramadan, if we allow exceptions for people who don't want to wear poppies, if we allow exceptions for whatever other crazy shit that people want to dream up, and I'm not disrespecting all those other things. But I'm saying is, it opens the door, doesn't it, for me to say, well, I identify as this, so I should be able to fucking go around the soccer pitch on a go-kart or whatever. Do you know what I mean? I'm being a bit
but you're ridiculous. Not causing Ramadan crazy shit, are you?
I'm not calling it crazy shit. But what I'm saying is, they're making exceptions for things they've never made exceptions for before. Where do they draw the line on that? And you're right, the whole poppy thing, a couple of years ago, there was no way you would have catch me wearing a poppy if I was in a public setting, or, on air or whatever it is. But when you actually look into what it means, it's literally just recognizing the people who sacrificed their lives in World War I. And in Ireland, we'd associate that with the Brits, and we'd have this issue with the Brits, and we're not going to respect, or, we're not going to celebrate their victories as such. But when you look into reality, there's so many Irish people fought in that war too. So by wearing the poppy, you're acknowledging their sacrifice as well. It's not just the British sacrifice.
But this is where do you draw the line? I mean, nobody interprets the poppy in Ireland as just respect for soldiers who lost their lives in World War I. That poppy is interpreted as a symbol of British rule. That's how Irish people choose to interpret
but that's
rightly
probably,
or wrongly.
That's a little bit of a little bit of ignorance, maybe, and a little bit of lack of education. And I get it. We're as you say, we've talked about the 70s and the Troubles. We're not completely out of the woods yet, or it's still in our psyche, the Troubles we had. And I think our generation, I think our kids will be fine. Our kids won't have a clue about it. It'll be just something. It'll just be something they read in history books. For you and me, I suppose we're very lucky not to live in the north, but we were conscious of it. Do you know what I mean? We were always conscious of the news of what was happening up the north, and it did seem like it may as well have been Iraq. It felt like a million miles away, but at the same time, you were conscious that it was your country, and then But I think our own kids, there won't be an issue. Yeah.
Porkchop said something here, Goldie, about the NFL, and I just want to ask Porkchop or you, I don't know if you know this, but do you remember with Black Lives Matter movement that last summer that lasted for a while, there was a number of Premier League players who took what do they call it, take the knee or something like that?
Yeah.
Out of respect for George Floyd.
Yeah.
And was there abuse given to him for it, or was it like overwhelming support for him when he did it? He's making, I know it's not a religious statement, but he's making a political statement in a sports game, which again, politics out of sport.
Colin Kaepernick was the quarterback who took a knee, but it wasn't for George Floyd. It was months, or if not years, previous to that, and it was in relation to the same thing, in relation to Black Lives Matters and cop deaths, black people being killed by cops or whatever.
Okay.
And
he took a knee about that.
He was like, before his time kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? He did it when it wasn't cool to do it. And he got slated and nobody backed him whatsoever. Like, I think he might have lost sponsorship. He didn't play for X amount of years or whatever.
Okay.
But only then, since kind of the George Floyd, and as it became more prevalent and it became more, on inverted commas, cool to support this cause and more of an issue, that they actually praise him as a pioneer. And
do you agree
you know what I mean?
But do you agree that he's in the wrong? He shouldn't have gotten all the abuse he got was correct. I mean, he's a sports star. He's an American footballer. He's bringing in his political beliefs. Over in England, if a guy does his Nazi salute, he's banned for life. It's the same personal beliefs that both of these people have. One might be nice to you and one might be disgusting to you. But it's just sports is maybe not the place.
Yeah, but that's the argument, isn't it? Like, you know, yeah, I'll be honest with you, because I've been involved in sports to some degree, and no, but in a kind of an influential way, let's say. And I was always of the opinion that politics should not come into it. I was always of the opinion that this sport is for everyone to play, regardless of your race, creed, beliefs, religious, whatever. Gender. It's equal, and we shouldn't be taking a stance on any of these things. And that was always my viewpoint. And in recent times, that changed, not from my perspective, but the expectation of it changed. We were expected to publicly denounce certain things or publicly support certain things. And yeah, maybe that is wrong. Maybe you're right in a certain degree. But the counter argument there, I suppose, is if Colin Kaepernick, who is a person of influence, wants to highlight something that's wrong, should he not be entitled to use that influence to do so? Look at Lewis Hamilton in Formula One racing. We race as one. He's a huge advocate for equal rights and Black Lives Matters and things like that. So should somebody who's has that power not be able to use it to influence things for the better?
So you think he's right to do so? You think
I'm asking the question.
Right.
Excuse me. I'm of two minds. Like Benji says, let us have something to enjoy without politics, and that's my view on it.
Okay.
Like, we should be able to enjoy things without. Like, I want to watch a football match. I want to watch a motor race. I want to watch whatever it is. Can I not just get away from the real world for a moment and just do something and enjoy something without having to think about it? But now every football match, people are taking knees. Every race, just the same thing. Just moments of silence. There's all this kind of stuff. Can we not just get away from it for a moment? We've dead air, folks.
Asking a question. Are you asking a question now?
Yes, I am asking a question.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you're being rhetorical there or not. Yes, we can. And with that, we segue to what? What's next on the show?
Oh, you want to get off the subject, do you?
Yeah, I think it's flogging a dead horse. Which if your man started doing that in a football stadium, he would equally be hauled off in the paddy wagon, which you can't say anymore.
You can't say anything anymore. In fact, we should probably just terminate this show right now. Just, you know what I mean? We're gone because but isn't that the reality? Because
that's why we're here. We're the last bastion holding on. As long as people don't listen to us, we have no airtime like your man.
But no matter what we say today, in 10 years' time, we're going to get crucified for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? True. Like, it's changing so much. But there needs to be an acknowledgement.
But the gas thing, Goldie, is the stuff that you were worried about us talking about, the controversial stuff, we'll actually seem like we're well plugged into the future. All the stuff that seems racist now, you know. Yeah,
maybe. But I don't think people should be chastised or lose their jobs over stuff they said on social media 10 years ago. They were different times. Different things were accepted. We don't need to make example of people.
Getting your defense ready.
No, but we just need to move on and to learn. Do you know what I mean? That's my opinion on it. But we'll move on to the next segment of the show, folks. And is it the next segment? A tourist joins search party and then realizes that everyone was looking for her. Okay, and Alanis Morissette may have a way to describe this, and that is obviously ironic. So this is basically a situation when an Icelandic bus driver contacted police to initiate a search after a foreign tourist reportedly went missing from her group. The driver described the missing woman as Asian, about 167. Okay, I don't know why that's funny, but she was an Asian lady. This is a real story, Pork Chop. If you're looking on Twitch or Facebook, you can see the story on your screen right now. So this lady was Asian, about 160 centimeters, in dark clothing, and speaks English well.
This is one hell of a bus driver. You get on, you pay your fee, stand there, and he marks you like you did with your kids when they're young against the wardrobe wall. And he writes down her height in centimeters.
But we're one of the few nations that actually use feet. Like, you would, like, I'm 6 foot, whatever.
I know. Like, I'm still impressed that he took her height.
But we'd all, most people would use centimeters. I think that's 184 centimeters for me. But that's what people would use.
Well, Asians would be small, wouldn't they?
Generally speaking, Asians would be smaller. Yeah. So basically,
1 billion of them.
So she was missing. So the tour group was driving through Elgija, a volcanic region in southern Iceland. It was reported that a Coast Guard helicopter assigned to search for the lost woman was delayed due to foggy conditions. So the tour group started looking for her on foot. About 50 people participated, including the woman herself. Right? She later stated that she didn't recognize the description of herself and unknowingly took part in a literal soul-searching mission.
Literal soul-searching. All right, yeah.
Well, she was basically looking for herself, wasn't she?
Okay, yeah,
Part of her confusion is also what caused the snafu. She had changed her clothes and freshened up at a stop before getting back on the bus.
She's homeless, basically, is she?
No, but she basically...
she was too embarrassed to admit it.
But the search was called off after the woman contacted the police and clarified the situation. Like, it is a funny story, isn't it? That there's this massive search party, and you're in the search party looking for yourself. But there's a couple of things that kind of strike you with that, isn't there? First of all, how shit were the people searching for this girl when she was with them the whole time? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, she was actually out there searching with them, and they didn't recognize her at all.
Can you really blame them that much?
Well, that's leading to my second point. Is it because she's Asian?
Is that Ali G now talking?
No, but what the story doesn't tell is, was she the only Asian on this bus?
Okay.
Like, if she was, well, then they're fucking idiots.
Yeah.
If she wasn't, and I suppose, again, there's a stereotype, isn't there, of Asian people on the bus all waving out the window, taking photographs and traveling in groups and stuff. So the presumption is that there was other Asian people there. But then the other stereotype is that, they say Asian people all look very similar to each other. Isn't that a stereotype? I'm not condoning that stereotype, but it certainly is one, isn't it?
Yeah. And they do all, like, it's not even serious. They do look like each other.
And I think it's okay, because I think us as Caucasian, Westerners or whatever, we look the same to them, apparently. That's what they tell us. So I don't think it's wrong. I don't think that's a racist thing to say.
I thought you were actually suggesting they actually do genuinely look like each other.
A lot of them do. Like,
yeah.
I'm very much of, and I've said this on the show before, I'm very much of the opinion that there's only a certain amount of molds. And I'm putting it in very simple terms as well. So let's say we believe in God. Let's just accept that everybody believes in God, right? And God creates everybody. So he's up there cooking away in his kitchen, making people. He only has a certain amount, of, like a star-shaped mold, a fish-shaped mold, a square-shaped mold, whatever it is, right? There's only a certain amount of molds he has to make people look like they do. And that's why we have so many doppelgangers around the place. Do you know what I mean? Like, but do you ever, like, you look at people and go, oh, geez, that person looks the image of this person, or that person has the very same characteristics of this person? because there's only a finite amount of ways we can look, isn't there?
Yeah, I'd agree.
Generally, like, unless people have anomalies, you know, with defects, birth defects and things like that. But generally, normal people they always look like other people. So that there has to be a certain amount of moles. And it's the same for Asian people. Maybe there's less moles for Asian people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why we would say that they look very similar.
Okay. So if these were all Asian people on this bus, and they do travel in packs, don't they? So if these,
well, like, that's very
like
that's a sweeping statement. But yeah, the stereotype would be that if they're on a bus trip or whatever, yeah, of course.
Yeah, and again, I suppose we're saying, I was going to say, well, they do travel together, and I was going to say Irish people don't. We go on like package holidays, or whatever. Let's say on a cruise, and there's going to be Swedish people and Norwegians there and Italians. But at the end of the day, if you're calling them Asians, basically Europeans do travel together. You know, if you go on a cruise,
yes,
with Europeans,
very true.
So
there's more than one Asian country, is what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, how long did the search go on before they realized? She realized
the search only ended when she called the police and clarified the situation.
Okay. So you think it was a language thing then?
No, I think this person genuinely was trying to help and realized that there's this missing girl, and she went to try to find this missing girl, but it actually ended up being herself. But if they were traveling in packs, like you say, how did the person she was traveling with not say, "Come here, they're looking for you"? Are they so indistinguishable even to themselves that they don't realize it? Like, do you know what I mean?
That's terrible. That's absolutely terrible to say, but it's true, probably.
I don't know. I don't want to cast aspersions.
Could there be something that we don't want to say because it's probably inappropriate? But
maybe it's an intelligence thing, Porkchop.
Well, that's definitely inappropriate. Suggesting they're
I'm not saying that as a stereotype. I'm saying about this particular group because we know Asian people are some of the most intelligent people in the world.
Yeah. Well, might they have been conning the system? Like, the first thing you do when someone goes missing, you're going to do a head count, aren't you?
Yes.
Right.
There was apparently an error.
Oh, right. So it wasn't like 30. You know the way when you rent out a room, or one Pakistani rents a hotel room for the night, and there's actually like 17 of them staying there. So it wasn't like a kind of con going on in that they actually genuinely got numbers wrong because they didn't know how many numbers were actually really on the bus.
No, there was apparently. No. It's a bit like Home Alone, you know, when there was a bit of a miscount with the head count.
Okay.
But I just thought it was very...
So the bus driver counted himself.
He must have. Or they. I don't want to assume they're he.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, but I just thought it was a very funny and interesting story, but a little bit lighthearted as we come towards our last couple of stories in the show.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Our penultimate, before we go to Agony Aunt, our penultimate story of the night. A UK Chancellor's folder mysteriously changes colour after he walks behind the car. Did you see this story, Charlie, or was it you that sent me this? I think it was actually...
did. Well, I heard the story anyway. I don't know if it was me who sent you it or not yet.
Yeah, so what this is, folks, and it's on your screens at the moment, is there was a budget in the UK released there back in, this is March actually 2020. I don't know how, I must have just stumbled across it. But the UK Chancellor walks out from 10 Downing Street, which is the government buildings, holding a red binder or folder. And he walks behind a car, and then mysteriously, as he walks away from the car, the folder is green. Okay? And we're just going to play the video here now on our screen. So you see him there. He's walking, red folder, goes behind the car, and it becomes green. And people kind of were asking the question, like, what the hell is going on here? What is this mystery? And it's proof that the media is lying to you. And Sky News, I believe it was, came out and actually admitted that they changed the colour of the book because the budget was all around climate change and combating global warming. So it would have made more sense for the folder to be green. Now, this just buys into the fact that the media lie to us and manipulate us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it probably does make sense for it to be green, but who are you, who people that we trust to get our news from, to change that color just for ratings or for whatever whim that you
But
decided?
would anyone care? Like, this is the crazy thing. It draws attention to it, the color change. So why didn't they just have it green from the very first bit of the clip? Or two, why bother changing
I
it?
say it
No
was
one
just
would
an
notice the
error.
color.
I'd say it was just an error that they just never copped to do it beforehand. Um, Maybe a time issue or maybe just an oversight or something like that. But it really does beg the question, doesn't it? What else are they manipulating in the news? What else are they lying to us about? And I don't want to sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist because like this whole flat earth thing is massive at the moment. The chemtrails, the changing of the environment, it just seems to have come to the fore in the last couple of months. And I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but this certainly doesn't help. Like we know the media lies, we know the media tells us things to suit the government agenda or their own agenda or to sell papers or whatever to get
Try
ratings,
not to be
whatever it
moving
is.
your phone there.
Whatever it is, but this is just too blatant in my opinion.
I'd
What
agree
do you?
with you. Yeah, I'd agree. And it's pointless. Is it someone in Sky News just trying to justify their payback? You know, that they're there in quality control or whatever it is, and they're just
It
making a
is, but
pointless change, you know?
what other videos are we seeing that aren't true? Like it's very hard to believe anything we see now. Like if you remember 10 years ago, or 5 years ago maybe, but certainly 10 years ago, if you saw a video of something amazing or something crazy or whatever, you'd take it for face value. You'd actually go, fucking hell. How the hell did he do that? Or how the hell did that happen? Or that's awful, or that's whatever it is, you take it for face value. Now you have to second guess absolutely everything you see. And it's sad, isn't it?
Maybe it's good that we're like that, Goldie, because taking things at face value was probably wrong. So maybe we're
I
more savvy.
I know, but who do you trust now? Who do we believe now?
Now you're
Do you know what
sounding
I
like a
mean?
conspiracy theorist. Yeah.
But no, but I know, but like when it's a conspiracy theorist telling me that the chemtrails are up in the air and they're sending down chemicals to mind control you or whatever bullshit stuff they come out with, I can look that up and I can say, well, what actually are chemtrails? Oh, it's just condensation. On a cold day when you blow it out your mouth, just condensation. It's exactly the same thing. The heat meeting the cold, the heat from the engine meeting the cold and creating the trail of condensation. That's all that is. It's very simple physics when you look at it. But now when I look at the news, like I watch BBC News or RT News or whatever it is, what you would consider the respected news channels.
But maybe that's it, Goldie. Let's be honest. If this is Sky News, for 1 second, would you have trusted Sky News anyway? I mean,
well, Sky News are obviously associated with sensationalism, and it's one of
yeah.
those. It's like Fox News or whatever. But how do I know when I'm
See what
watching?
Benji's saying there? That's worrying now. But again, I'd love to know what news station cropped that and why would they crop that
Is
video
this
of
the
the
one
shooting?
where the child was shot? The person under 18 was chased by a cop and he was shot, but just before you see it, you can see that the gun was actually thrown away. Yeah, like that was cropped. But at the same time, all like that happened in a matter like less than probably a second. I don't know. You're aware of that story, Charlie? This is
No.
essentially a kid. I can't remember the age of the kid, but certainly a fairly young enough child who I believe was black, had a gun. The cop responded to the call of this kid having a gun. The kid took chase. The cop chased him, and in some alleyway or something or whatever, the cop told the kid to drop the gun. The kid kind of turned around, but as the kid turned around, he dropped the gun, and then went, I think, maybe put his hand up or something. But as he was putting his hand up, the cop believed, you can kind of see in slow motion, you see that he had the gun halfway through the turn, and by the time he completed the turn, the gun was gone.
Okay.
But the cop had that split second. Yeah, the cop had that split second decision to make, and it's an awful decision to make, and I'm sure that cop has to live with that, for the rest of his life. But he decided to shoot, and I think he's perfectly justified. It was under a second,
absolutely,
and it was. You're perfectly justified in taking that shot.
And would you agree that probably no one would blame the guy? No one in their right mind.
Well, this is the thing. There was obviously uproar in relation to it. I'm getting a notification here that this live stream is going to end in 2 minutes. I'm not sure why that is. Have you not been paying the bills again, Charlie?
No.
Okay, we're going to have to cut it short. Shoot or be shot. You're right, Benji. I think you'd have to take a shot. Basically, do not trust the news.
Or the cops.
Finally, Charlie, what have you got for me? Agony Aunt, give me a very brief
description. Okay, I'll just read it out then. Dear Goldie, I'm writing to you regarding a matter of some delicacy and hope that you will keep my name and that of my family anonymous. I would be mortified if my family or neighbours in York were to find out my situation. I'm 29 years old and live happily with my father and his new wife, Bridget. They married 18 months ago and have a strong, loving relationship. I was delighted that my father found a second chance at love after 64 years of married bliss with his first wife, who is my mother. Since I lost my job due to the coronavirus earlier this year, I've been forced to give up my apartment and move back into the Johnson family home. But this doesn't seem to have caused any problems to my father and his wife. I've always gotten on with my new mother-in-law.
Get to the point, Charlie.
I'm just reading out the letter, Goldie.
We don't have time. We have 40 seconds.
All right.
How about we bring that into our next show? Apologies to you, listener. I'm sure you're Charlie has ended the call. Folks, it's been absolutely amazing. I don't know why we've only got 120 minutes. We're supposed to have 3 hours. We'll get on to why Charlie hasn't paid the bills. Thanks very much to everyone that has listened. Pork Chop, Benji. Yes, you're right. Ask forgiveness rather than permission. It's better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Anyway, thanks a million, folks. Sorry to cut it short, but I've been Goldie Metcalf. He was Charlie Naughton, and this was Midnight in Baghdad. Good night, and God bless.